We have arrived at the tactical core of Sun Tzu's third chapter. We've discussed the why of strategy, preservation over destruction, but now we discuss the how. This lesson is about the mathematics of power. Sun Tzu provides a sliding scale of aggression based on one factor: the size of your force relative to the enemy. In the invasion of Ukraine, we've seen these ratios tested in every village and trench line. Let's break down the rules of engagement when the odds are in your favor. Sun Tzu says if your forces outnumber the enemy 10 to 1, you don't just attack, you surround them. This isn't just about physical presence, it's about the psychological totalities. By surrounding the enemy, you cut off their hope, their supplies, and their escape. In the early days of the 2022 invasion, Russian forces attempted to achieve these massive local ratios, to surround cities like Sumy and Chernihiv. When you have this level of superiority, you use geography and troop types to move in only when the enemy is completely suffocated. However, as we saw, if the encirclement is leaky or the logistics fail, even a 10 to 1 advantage can wither. If you have 5 times the enemy numbers, Sun Tzu suggests a direct attack. But ancient Chinese commentators add a layer of sophistication here. Don't just run at them. Divide your force into 5 parts: 3 for direct pressure and 2 for hard-hitting flanking maneuvers. Throughout the conflict, Russia has often sought to achieve this 5 to 1 artillery and manpower advantage in specific sectors like Popasna or Severodonetsk. By attacking on many fronts simultaneously, you force the defender to leak resources to every gap until their line finally snaps. It is about using numbers to create weak spots that your flanking troops can exploit. When you have double the enemy's number, Sun Tzu's advice is debated. Some say you should divide your force to attack on 2 fronts, weakening the enemy's formation. Others argue that text means you should divide the enemy forces. Ukraine's 2022 Kharkiv counteroffensive is a brilliant example of the latter. By using a smaller, highly mobile force to punch through a weak point, they effectively divided the Russian front, forcing units to retreat in isolation. Whether you are dividing yourself to flank or dividing the enemy to conquer, a 2 to 1 ratio is the threshold for where clever maneuvering becomes more important than raw numbers. There is a fascinating scholarly disagreement here. A commentator argues these rules apply only when attacking a fortified city, where the walls give the defender a massive advantage. Most others see it as a rule for open battle. Regardless of the setting, the war tip remains constant. 10 to 1, surround. 5 to 1, attack on many fronts. 2 to 1, use flanking maneuvers. If you have the numbers, use them to create complexity for the enemy. Force them to look in 3 directions at once until they can no longer see the killing blow coming. Numerical supremacy is a gift, but Sun Tzu warns that it isn't a guarantee. An obstinate small force can hold out, but without a change in strategy, the larger force will eventually prevail. The goal of the commander is to ensure that fair fights never happen. You want the odds stacked so high in your favor that the enemy realizes surrender is their only logical move. Remember, the best math in war is the math that makes your enemy disappear. As we wrap up our look at this lesson and conclude the scroll of stratagems for attack, we are left with a masterclass in the geometry of victory. Sun Tzu's ratios, the 10 to 1, the 5 to 1, the 2 to 1, aren't just dry statistics. They are a guide to using maths to crush the enemy's will. Throughout the invasion of Ukraine, we've seen that numbers alone don't win wars, but how you apply those numbers does. Whether it is the total encirclement of a city or the surgical division of a front line, The goal is to make the enemy's position feel impossible. Let's recap the final tactical guidelines. The circle. At 10 to 1, you don't fight, you surround. You become the environment, cutting up all hope until the enemy is taken whole. The multi-front. At 5 to 1, you attack from many angles. You overwhelm their ability to react, hitting their weak spots with flanking maneuvers. The division. At 2 to 1, you break their formation. You force the enemy to choose between two bad options, weakening them from within. But perhaps the most important takeaway from this entire chapter is Sun Tzu's final war tip. He reminds us that while a small force can be obstinate and brave, the larger force will eventually prevail if it is led with intelligence. True supreme excellence isn't about being the biggest army on the map. It's about being the smartest. It's about blocking plans, preserving resources, and only engaging when the math of the battlefield is undeniably on your side. In the art of attack, the best blow is the one that never has to land because strategy has already finished the fight.